Welcome back, sickos, to another episode of Necessary Roughness right here on the Bite Size Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, John, joined joined by my lovely co-host, Ben Parker of Sports and Money KC. Ho, 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 and a bottle of rum. Ben, how you doing?
Oh, hey, mateys, I'm doing fine. I'm excited. Sorry I had to miss last week, but I appreciate y'all covering for me, and I'm glad to be back. And we got a lot to talk about on the NFL this week, and I hope everybody enjoys their Halloween.
Yeah. So we'll get to the weekend slate. If you missed the inaugural episode of Unnecessary Roughness on Friday night, Kevin and I talked a lot about the Thursday night game, our gripes with some of that, and some takeaways. How well the Rams played when they've got their two big time receivers healthy, and the fallout from that. One part of that fallout was the ACL MCL tear for Christian Darrisaw. He'll be out for the season now, opting for surgery. But just a few hours ago, the Vikings pivoted and sent a conditional 2026 fifth-round pick that could turn into a fourth based off of playing time to the Jaguars for Cam Robinson, who you'd think would plug right in at left tackle. Of course, I just had a piece published today for zone coverage, just kind of speculating how they would shake things around. Is it going to be David Quessenberry? Is Blake Brandel going to kick out to left tackle? Is Dalton Reiser going to go to left tackle where he played in college? None of those will happen. They are actually just going to go get another straight up starting caliber left tackle in Cam Robinson. The Jags, I think, are just kind of calling it a day over there. Gonna start Walker Little going forward. It looks like Robinson was coming off of a concussion, but he's no Christian Darrisaw. Hit similar billing coming out of college, but he's only allowed 2 pressures over the last 117 pass blocking snaps. So he's playing pretty hot coming into this, and I think this is the best option the Vikings could have landed on, frankly. So I didn't think they'd go for it, to be honest with you. And the compensation was something we were kind of all waiting for. It was like 25 minutes after the initial news broke that we finally got the compensation. And there's not much in the war chest for the Vikes, but a 2026 fifth, maybe fourth, I think is a pretty fair price, especially if this team wants to continue to contend. Ben, you're a big O-line guy. What are your thoughts on Darrisaw's injury and how that'll affect the team, as well as the move for Cam Robinson here today?
Yeah, so listen, you're right about Darrisaw. I love Darrisaw. He's one of my 2 favorite tackles in all of football right now, without considering Trent Williams. Let me go the younger guys, right? Darrisaw is so good. He's a weapon. I love him to death. I have loved him ever since he got out of college. He is amazing, and nobody can touch him. There's Penei Sewell's my other guy, right? Those are my 2 guys. They're amazing, So for him to be out, you're not going to fix that. But considering the fact that you're having such a good season, Robinson comes in. Where else are you going to get a starting level tackle at, man? You got the Jaguars who are willing to move off of this. You mentioned the compensation. That is nothing, man. The average statistical outcome of a day 3 draft pick is so low that this is nothing. I absolutely love this for them. Just for this season, it gives you a chance. So you pivot a little bit, right? That's a good word. You pivot a little bit. You don't do the same things that you did with Darrisaw, but you're holding down the fort there at tackle, maybe even better than that. The offense hopefully just keeps on rolling. And, on the flip side, it surprised me that the Jaguars did this a little bit. I know they suck, but you're kind of openly quitting is what you're doing here. To trade away, I know Walker, the other Walker Little can step over. I get that. You're kind of quitting right in the middle of the season here if you're the Jaguars. So that surprised me.
Yeah, I agree. I made the joke on Friday's show as well, but I'll wear it out a little bit. The Jags have dug themselves a pretty deep hole so far this season, and Peterson still has his job. I think that news is probably coming pretty soon. They were also one of the teams Kevin and I highlighted as having the most to lose this past weekend at home against Green Bay. Brandon McManus knocks down his second straight game-winning field goal as time expires in his second game with the Packers. So they're humming, but rough loss for the Jags, and they're showing their hand here a little bit. I think you're right. It is kind of a soft quit at this point in the season. Before we get to the next decent sized bit of trade news, let's bring Keebler in here.
Oh yeah, Keebler.
Fresh off a technical difficulty. But he is among us. Keebs, how you doing, brother?
After last night, not as good. Overall, pretty good. I think I'd be a lot better if Luka gets a triple-double. That's for sure. I'll tell you that much. But other than that, I don't know, pretty decent. How you guys doing?
Also, man, making some money, I hope.
Fingers crossed.
We're hanging in there. Vikes are back. Oh, that reminds me. I've got to check on the game real quick. Anthony Edwards had 24 in the first quarter. He's got like 5 points since the third's almost over. A couple commenters here. Here we go.
Here we go.
Now the Knicks are nice.
Here we go. Ruben, how you doing, man? Thanks for joining us. Yeah.
Is that Justin Herbert?
Oh, man. Okay, so next, that is actually, that's his, we got his secret identity now. Bruce Wayne is in the comment section now. Next decent-sized trade was Diontae Johnson going to the Ravens here. And this was a pick swap. So the Panthers are just moving up around, and Diontae goes to the Ravens. Ben, from like the Ravens' perspective, I think the Panthers are an even more extreme version of what we just talked about with the Jags, as far as, all right, whatever we can get for whoever's on the team at this point. What's your take on how he fits in with the Ravens group of pass catchers and what he could bring to that offense?
More than fit, because you're actually better at fit than I am. What I do like about this for the Ravens, and it surprised me, I didn't think they had a move in them. I didn't think they needed one necessarily, but here it is. It does give the defense more to have to work on. So now all of a sudden, you've got more legitimate weapons for Lamar to choose from. The defenses are spread thinner trying to guard these different – I mean, listen – it's hard. You got your hands full trying to cover Lamar and Derrick Henry, right? Goodness gracious. Well, then you got the two tight ends floating around there who haven't had big seasons, but they're very effective when they need to be. And now you're going to add Diontae Johnson in along with Zay Flowers. And I haven't checked if Flowers is healthy or not, but I mean, it just spreads the defense thin. You kind of sort of always have a mismatch somewhere at this point if you're Lamar that you can go to. So no matter what the defenses do, and this will come in handy later against Kansas City in the playoffs should they meet, you kind of always have a mismatch. So that's the part I really do like about it.
Yeah, no, I agree. They've gone to a lot of heavy personnel this season, just kind of as a result of who's on that roster. A lot of 12, a lot of 21, extra linemen here and there. But I think this really crystallizes their 11 personnel look and kind of rounds that out. You've got that intermediate separator now in Diontae Johnson, quick in and out of his routes. Zay Flowers is a passable route runner, but we've talked about him before where a lot of the action he's going to get is on drags, bubbles, big deep crossers things like that. Had a hilarious route on Denzel Ward on Sunday. I don't know if you guys saw that one where he did
No.
It was like a dig and go. It was like a double dig and go. He kind of hit him with a deep stop, come in deep again, and it was just like Denzel Ward was in pretty good pretty good technique, but it was just one of those things like, okay, this isn't a route. Like, of course he got burnt on this. It was like a Senior Bowl route. But he did break open and the ball went to him. It was just an overthrow. But he's fun anyway. And Rashad Bateman's kind of that, like a pretty solid tertiary weapon at this juncture. Never really turned it into that big number one. But he's got the body type of an X receiver. So you can kind of use those other guys, at a little bit more gadgety, and allow Lamar to have some more options as a passer, especially on late downs. They've struggled a little bit, like on 3rd and longs, nominal passing downs. So I think that opens some things up for him, and just getting some more juice on that offense, I think is really, really interesting for that team in particular. Before we get to perhaps the most gripping news of the day, Keeves, do you have any Diontae Johnson to the Ravens takes?
I think it shows where their head is at after those Bateman drop balls. Trying to bring in an extra receiver that's been proven to be pretty good when he has a good quarterback. I don't know. I think for what they gave up, it's a good move. I think it was a 5th and a 6th. So I think that the value is definitely there. It's not really a net negative at all to add him. Plus, you give Lamar another weapon. So I'm all in favor of it for the Ravens. And then the Panthers also get draft capital, which they wanted anyway. So it works out for both sides for sure. And now Adam Thielen's coming off of IR. So
yeah, and you get more Jalen Coker snaps. So I think I'm all about that as well from Carolina's perspective. So this is a big one, and Kevin and I talked about the prospects of this at length on Friday, and this, there was another game played since then. Anthony Richardson was underwhelming in that game. Abysmal completion percentage. There were some drops, and it wasn't all on him. But again, there were a lot of things he could have done better from, just a down-to-down accuracy standpoint. I was pretty taken aback by him tapping out for a play. I can only imagine how the offensive linemen feel about something like that. But so there's been some speculation that this is just like a one-game grounding or punishment for, kind of taking a play off essentially as the quarterback of a football team. And maybe that's all it is. But if this is more of a long-term solution where, this is in an effort to chase the wild card, maybe they thought they should have come out with that win on Sunday, and they would have with Joe Flacco under center. So kind of from both angles, whether that is the, just kind of one game punishment, or if it is something they're going to go with for the rest of the season, barring anything unforeseen with Flacco, like an injury or a significant drop in play. Ben, how does this move make you feel about the Colts as an organization and about Anthony Richardson as a player going forward?
So I'm going to have a lot of takes. I'm going to hit them really quick. Number one, I wouldn't have drafted Anthony Richardson because I just didn't believe in him. Now, having said that, he's shown me some walk-on-water, miraculous type of things, okay? And so at this point, I would keep starting him because the Colts have already been down the old man, maybe we get in the playoffs, maybe we don't road for the past 5, 6, 7 years, okay? So while I 100% understand moving to Flacco and he gives you more of a chance to win now, and they may make the playoffs and they may do what the Browns did last year, I totally get it. If it were me and I'm a Colts fan, I want Anthony Richardson out there so we can keep playing because by the next year, 2 years of the season are gone. He still hasn't played a whole heck of a lot of football because he didn't play much in college. I mean, I would play Anthony Richardson. I also, going back to the offseason, I wouldn't have brought Joe Flacco in because that's just too big of a presence, man. It's kind of hovering over. He's good enough to start. Like, that. So here's a guy you've kind of already set yourself up here for quarterback controversy with your young quarterback here. I would have brought in another decent quarterback, like, maybe Jacoby Brissett or something, to give yourself a chance if Richardson had to come out due to injury. So, again, that's all me. That's where I'm at. But, man, I see the flip side, too.
Yeah, because, coming out, like, you don't want to get into, like, a sunk cost fallacy situation if you don't feel like he's the guy.
Right.
But you take him in the top 5 knowing that he needs reps. That's
right.
the main thing he needs. He's got the physical traits. He's a sharp kid. He just needs live reps. 14 starts in college, 10 starts in the pros to this point.
Mm-hmm.
And to pull him leading into a midseason game against a complex NFL defense seems like a really, really high opportunity cost for his development. So if it's not signaling anything long term, then I guess I get it a little bit, just because I was not a fan of your quarterback coming out for a play. And I mean, I play pickup basketball and I'm jogging by the third possession, but as an NFL quarterback, it's a different sort of thing. The old linemen don't come out. But so I wasn't a huge fan of that. But even if that's the case, like, that makes more sense, but it doesn't make a ton still to me. Keebler, where do you land on the A-Rich benching? And do you think it is something that, just optics-wise, is this something you feel like they might ride into the playoffs, or do you think this is just kind of a one game, go sit in the corner?
I think what Anthony Richardson did was absolutely ridiculous, and the only way to send the message across to your franchise is to trade him to like an NFC team, so you don't have to worry about him. Probably like a team like a team in the NFC East that like really needs a quarterback. I think that's the way that you send your message across for sure. No, but in all seriousness, I think it was just like a one-time thing. I don't know. I think, like you said, it's probably like a one-game punishment or whatever, and then go back to him, because you don't take him top 5, like you said, and then not give him the attention he needs or like the reps that he needs in order to succeed. So I think if you would have given more of a PR trained answer, maybe the consequences wouldn't be to sit out for a game. Like Micah Parsons said, when you talk to the media, just like say you had an injury, and I think that would have been fine. But moving forward, they can definitely, like, the playoffs are still within reach for sure. I think Flacco's the better option, but you don't pick him top 5 to not play him,
Yeah, no, I'm totally with you. And it's like, all right, yeah, are you really just chasing a wild card blowout? Have fun, guys. And yeah, like, just tell them, yeah, I cramped up a little bit for a minute there, worked through it. Because now it does kind of feel like, oh, do you want to rest? All right, here, take a 60-minute rest this Sunday. But we'll see what happens with that one. I'm not sure who I prefer as a matchup for the Vikings between he and Flacco. But Flacco might set your floor a little bit higher and, be a little bit less flustered by all the Vikings defensive disguise. But either way, that's something to monitor going forward. Really quick, sticking on that division, it sounds like Stefon Diggs is out for the season for the Texans. So you went from wide receiver 1, Nico Collins, you went from Tank Dell as your wide receiver 3 to your wide receiver 1 in a matter of a couple of weeks. And I really like Tank Dell. He's done a lot of good things for him, but now it's going to be a case where you need Joe Mixon to stay healthy and stay effective. You need some big-time production from a guy like Dalton Schultz. and you need CJ Stroud to continue to be the rising tide that lifts all boats for this offense, and to continue to make inhuman throws and adjustments in the pocket for them to stay afloat. So maybe the Colts see that something like that too and say, hey, this division is kind of up for grabs right now. Jags and Titans have sort of just fallen off the board at this point. And it looks like a two-team race. And I think having played both Texans games already and feeling like you were in that league, particularly last Sunday, I don't know. Maybe that's something they're chasing, but really, really big bummer for the Texans and Stefon Diggs, who's been really solid this season for them. And the Texans were my Super Bowl pick matched up against the Eagles. The Eagles pick is starting to look a lot better than it did through the first few weeks. The Texans pick is starting to look a little worse than it did through the first few weeks, but we trudge on. Next team, we're still out in the AFC here, and we're still talking about a shitty team. Next segment is Boeing built the 2024 New York Jets. What is happening? There was a stat. I might accidentally fudge the numbers a tiny bit, but it was something like teams are 200 and something and 0 or 200 and something and 1 now when they allow less than 250 yards, score more than 20 points, and don't turn the ball over. Teams are 200 and something and 1, and that one loss was the Jets to the Patriots this last Sunday. They were the main team I flagged on our Friday show. For a team that has the most to lose, they go into Foxborough 2-5, and they leave it 2-6. And this wasn't even because Drake May had a coming out party or something like that. It wasn't something they couldn't necessarily have prepared for. This was Jacoby Brissett for 90% of this game. It was Ramondre Stevenson. It was a feisty New England defense. That, well, we could talk a little bit of KC trade news as a part of that. Turned around and shipped Josh Uche to the Chiefs after they just picked up DeAndre Hopkins. And I'm a big Josh Uche guy as as a pass rush specialist, so I like that move too. But for the Jets, it's like Devontae gets here. You're 0-2 since. Rodgers played a clean game, but he's just not carrying the offense anymore. He's not that guy anymore. And the defense has, again, been good enough to win you games if you're planning on having the Aaron Rodgers at quarterback and you're planning on these weapons being maximized, both in the run game and your pass catchers. So the sky's falling for the Jets. People are already tweeting out potential dead cap hits if they move on from Rodgers. Keebler, you're a fan of the other team that plays in East Rutherford, New Jersey. What is your take on the 2024 Jets? Are they dead in the water? They can probably only afford to lose one or two more games. And what does that mean then going forward for the regime? All in with the Devontae trade, everything like that. Both in 2024 and moving forward. How do you feel about the Jets?
I would say that they're probably the worst team this year that plays at MetLife Stadium. For starters, that's not even trolling. I think the Giants are having a better year than the Jets overall. But let me not mention my team for a second. I don't know. It's just really absurd what's going on. You would think a team with like Breece Hall, Braylon Allen, Devontae, Garrett, Lazard, Rodgers, an improved O-line and an amazing defense would probably stampede everyone, but they're not. And that's pretty evident. So there were a couple things I think I saw in the Jets-Patriots game and that was not being aggressive enough on 4th and shorts. I feel like that probably had something to do with it. If you have that trust in Aaron Rodgers and don't trust him to get you 3 or 4 yards, don't really know what your plan is, especially against a division rival where those games are the most important when it comes to standings. Obviously, the Patriots not important when it comes to standings, but you get what I'm getting at. You need to beat your division rivals, and you should want to beat down on them. But I feel like having an interim head coach is probably part of it also, because he's not trying to lose his position that he was just stepped up into. But things just aren't looking good. I can't pinpoint something specifically. I just know that the product of what they're putting on the field is not good at all. That's where I'll end my sentence on that one.
Yeah, it's been bad. Ben, any closing thoughts on the Jets?
It's kind of disorganized at this point, right? Aaron Rodgers already invites that in the first place. Then when Saleh goes, it's. I don't know that Ulrich is incapable of doing this job, but you've just got so much disorganization now, and boy, they just can't scrape it together. They're just not figuring out a way to win games. They're figuring out a way to lose games, even against the Patriots, against 2 different quarterbacks. So, by the way, Ruben's on a roll here on the chat, man. He's tearing it up. So that's all my thoughts on the Jets.
Yeah, 100%. Let's get over to my neck of the woods here. The Lions. I put the Lions secure the biggest win of 1956. 52 points on the board, 85 passing yards. So these guys can just win however they want to win, I suppose. I mean, this was, and it's not even like it was a crazy, I mean, it was a big time rushing game. They're putting up 6.8 yards a carry, but less than 200 yards on the ground as well. This was the Khalif Raymond show, and it was the Jack Fox show, frankly. Jack Fox, over 60 yards a punt. Khalif Raymond had a 90-yard punt return touchdown, 190 return yards total. There was also a 72-yard kick return in this game. It was all 3 phases for Detroit, just smacking Tennessee around. This would probably be the most demoralizing way to lose a game as a fan of a team or as a, part of that locker room. Like just getting your ass kicked in every phase. Sloppy on special teams. Like, I mean, this is just a burn the tape kind of, the next week for Tennessee. I think you've just got to burn the film and, do a prayer circle around it. But they fall to 1-6. It's over there. But from the Detroit side of things, for you, Ben, how impressive was this win just kind of compared to the other 5 they've got on the season?
Yeah, it was highly impressive, and the Lions at the moment are the far and away NFC team for the Super Bowl. It's not even close. I'm waiting on a couple other teams to push back in there, but at the moment it's just Detroit. This was impressive, but I go back to the Cowboys a year ago and even 2 years ago that they too were capable of putting on these just blasting performances against teams that were overwhelmed. So I don't put too much weight on it, especially when we saw the Ravens go last week when, literally 5 days ago, everyone was proclaiming it to be a Baltimore-Detroit Super Bowl, right? So you take 1 week, it's great, you move on. There are teams out there who can handle Detroit. Now, Detroit may still win the Super Bowl, but listen, Kansas City, Baltimore, maybe Buffalo, maybe. There are teams out there that can handle Detroit. If Minnesota's 100% clicking, they can handle Detroit. Green Bay, if they're 100% healthy, they can handle Detroit. but still, it's impressive to watch them do this in back-to-back weeks, man. I mean, goodness. I mean, that's impressive.
Yeah, I agree. I think Detroit is there's probably a tier break after Detroit in the NFC right now. But I agree, like if things kind of roll the right way for Vikings, Packers, the Eagles, the way they're starting to run the football, and starting to get the deep ball to work a little bit, the way Quinyon Mitchell and now Cooper DeJean looking like a really good nickel. For them, things are starting to click for them. I don't really know who else in the NFC can contend, even at their best. As well as the Rams played them on opening week and last year in the playoffs. There's no Aaron Donald. There's no Ernest Jones. It's a thinner group. Everything would have to go right for a team like them to make the Lions sweat. The Niners don't look like the Niners most weeks. So yeah, I think Detroit's a cut above right now, and it pains me to say it. They've been little brother in the division for most of my life, and they're starting to really hit their stride here. Just a demonstrative win there. Keebler, I'm going to kick it to you here to kick off our next segment. This is about.
I just want to say something on that last game. I did not have a David Montgomery and Sam Laporta passing touchdown on my bingo card. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, the odds must have been pretty good on that one if you bet it pregame. So tell me about from a Giants point of view, your thoughts on last night's game, Niners Cowboys was Sunday night. Your thoughts on last night's game, your takeaways from a Giants perspective, and then I'll talk a little bit about the Steelers because I named this segment. I don't care. The Steelers are fun to watch to me. I enjoy myself watching the Steelers. So, but kind of a gross game for a lot of it. What are your takeaways, from the Giants' point of view?
I think we had a lot of opportunities to win that game. Plain and simple. The one thing that stuck out to me was you never get any visible emotion from Daniel Jones. It kind of just looks like the cinnamon stick from Apple Jacks, with just like a plain face on. Or what was his name? The Cinnamon or whatever. Kind of like that facial structure. But there was like a point at the end of the game, or toward the end of the game, where he was just visibly frustrated. He like took his helmet off, was yelling, and that it's a problem when he shows that kind of emotion because that never happens. I think Malik Neighbors has to remember that he's not in college anymore. It's 2 feet in, not 1 foot in. And that changes the complexion of the game a lot. I don't know. I'm really not mad at the result. I knew we were going to lose. It basically just, I don't know. It comes down to being more aggressive. Danny has to learn how to read a defense. He was making really good throws, though. I'll give him that. There were some things that I've never seen out of Daniel Jones in that game. I'll give him credit on that. But I don't know. Like, our run game was decent. Our receiving game was decent. I just think that we were outmatched, and our O-line allowed too many sacks to who was it, Highsmith and Watt. So, I don't know. We should beat the Commanders this week. Probably not. Jaden Daniels is probably going to drop 80 fantasy points on our head. But at the end of the day, you just can't have shit in New York, I guess, if that's what the saying is. And I don't know, just tank the rest of the season, draft Will Anderson top 5 because we need a corner, or Travis Hunter if we have the first pick, and go from there.
Yeah, every time I watch Daniel Jones, I kind of like it. it wasn't a great week one, but I don't think like the way the Vikings came out of the gates, I don't think, given the same circumstances, I don't think there were a lot of quarterbacks that would have looked great. We went on to make CJ Stroud look like shit the following week. So, or the 2 weeks later, but I don't know. He's been looking kind of sharp every time I tune in this season. It's just, it seems like he's almost has to play with an arm behind his back at certain times, just kind of the way the offense operates. And now without Andrew Thomas, it's tough. But yeah, that was and same with the Cowboys game. Like these felt like very winnable games, like almost all the way through. It was really until that Calvin Austin touchdown that it was like this could still go either way. But it just didn't. Tyrone Tracy looks pretty good, and there's some things to like, but yeah, it's a tough supporting cast for DJ to succeed with right now, and I think Dable's a good coach. It's just hasn't really been clicking yet. I think a couple more pieces, and you could see a pretty sizable turnaround for this team going into next season. But I want to highlight the Steelers a little bit because first and foremost, Russ made some really nice throws. I think you're seeing, everybody liked the results from Justin Fields' time as a starter this season. But I think on a down-to-down basis, you see the difference between Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. The throw he made to Pickens, that got him down into the low red zone on the sideline, away from a double team, into his outstretched arms. One of the best placed balls all weekend. And like the way he's able to, and like he looks a little Seahawks Russ-ish to me at times, the way he's able to escape and make throws on the run outside of the pocket, showing some flashes there. And they've also just had a really good run game, particularly the last few weeks. Najee Harris is getting like 8-9 yards a clip. And Jalen Warren spells him nicely, but Najee's been really, really good. And I've had my gripes with Najee just from like when you have the body type probably most akin to Derrick Henry of like any other back in the league, you expect some real ferocity with the way he runs, and he doesn't always show that, but he's been looking really, really good this year. The way he finishes runs, that hurdle over Deonte Banks was awesome. And some of these younger guys on the Pittsburgh offensive line have been really, really good so far, particularly in the run. Broderick Jones and Zach Frazier, and things have looked really good. Darnell Washington. It's a good rushing attack that I think Russ, as the trigger man, is able to take advantage with some like timely, really nice creating off schedule on late downs and things like that. And then the defense, of course, is the Steelers defense. But wanted to get your guys' quick opinions on one of the goofier plays of the week. And it's a double 1 foot catch. This brought a lot of discourse out of like really, really smart football people that were like, so that, wait, that's not a catch? Like JJ Watt was like, so why isn't that a catch? Like this threw everybody for a loop. And we have kind of one of these catch, no catch controversies almost every year, it seems like. But Ben, what was your like initial thought as they're reviewing things or as you're seeing the replay? Like, was your first instinct that's a catch since he got his foot down and up and down again?
Yeah, so I'll go 30 seconds before that. My first thought when I saw the play live was, oh, that's a touchdown. How could he not get 2 feet down, right? There's no way he didn't get 2 feet down, touchdown, move on. And then they showed the replay, and Oh, wait a second. That's 1 foot twice. Now, once I saw the replay in my head, just being, I guess, a rules neat Nick, I said, that's not a catch. Boom, boom, done, move on, right? But I understand, man. Is that not just as difficult to kind of hover that way and tap with 1 foot as it would be to 2 feet in? Listen, when those receivers, though, have a chance to get both feet down, and he kind of had that chance, he didn't do it or wasn't able to do it, I put that back on the receiver. That's a really interesting play, though. We never see that, right? That's very unusual.
All I know is Deontay Banks is the best corner in the league.
Just a clutch shove from Deontay. Yeah. Oh, man. Okay, let's Keebler's going to like this segment.
Oh, boy.
Let's close on this one.
Yeah!
Let's see if it... Cowboy, should we... So I'll have you start this one, Keebler. You've obviously seen some of them head to head, and I know you hold them as a franchise near and dear to your heart. So I'll let you kick this off. Vibes, play on the field, everything else. Do you feel like this team is done this season? Is this a team that's not making the playoffs, etc.?
Dak is ass. Zeke is ass. The entire defense is basically ass at this point, except Micah. He's pretty good. You lose to the 49ers, who have been ass. Like, there's no other way to put both of those teams are like the epitome of ass this year. And you just ended up being more ass. Sorry for the extended use of that word, but Dak does not deserve
all encompassing.
Dak does not deserve $60 million a year. Rico Dowdle, if he was playing, doesn't change that game at all. CD, I mean, he's CD Lamb. I can't really say anything bad about him. I can't say anything bad about Michael either. Everyone else on the team, outside of CD and Micah, all 50, 52 of them, terrible. Jerry Jones is mainly to fault for this because he's a terrible owner, straight up. But they have some serious retooling to do if they ever want to, like, contend again. And maybe they thought the playoffs came early this year. Maybe they thought this was a playoff game, and that's why they did so bad. But they're just not good. And that's all I gotta say on it. All I know is the Giants are a better team than the Cowboys, and once we fill up those couple holes, we're good. Plain and simple. Also, Daniel Jones is better than Dak Prescott. Argue with the wall.
I love some good nuanced analysis when I hear it, and that I couldn't ask for much more. I agree with the sentiment. Overall, I think they're donezo. It's not a good situation, and I think Jerry Jones has fostered an environment that is largely negative and largely deflective of blame and culpability, and I'm not a fan of much of what's going on over there. I think, between Mike McCarthy and Mike Zimmer, this is a really disappointing showing as a coaching staff this season, given the resumes of those two guys and their time in the league. I also think that from like a pro scouting perspective, they did a horseshit job this offseason. They had a chance to retain some very effective players from last season, like Dorrance Armstrong, and players like that. And they decided not to. They ended up going to a division rival and, kind of twisting the knife. And then from an offensive standpoint, you also don't go out and get anything complimentary to CeeDee Lamb to take anything off of it. And then to compound that, you don't really do anything complex on the offensive side of the football. They're towards the bottom of the league in usage of motion. They're very static. They put a lot on Dak's plate as a processor. He's out there playing like 03 Peyton Manning style football when you're just not going to be able to, get man indicators that way. You're not going to be able to give yourself a leg up on the chessboard. And you're putting a lot on CD to win in tight windows, and he's great. And Dak's very good. Zach Martin doesn't look like Zach Martin. He doesn't look like Zach Martin. Guyton and Smith, and it's just not a complete offensive line either. Very un-Cowboys like. And how many mid-30s, early to mid-30s retreads could we list? Dalvin Cook, Ezekiel Elliott, Linval Joseph, Eric Kendricks. Like, there's just too many of those kind of guys. Brandon Cooks, you can make an argument, is in that category, playing big-time roles for this team. And it's just not going to be sustainable. It never was. And that 49ers loss kind of felt like a nail in the coffin for me. Ben, any Cowboys thoughts before we get out of here? And maybe even take it a step further as far as what this means, from like a wider perspective for the Cowboys going forward too. Locked into Dak, and not a lot of flexibility outside of it. They really need to make something shake.
Yeah, so for me, and I'm in the minority on this, but I've been studying this cap situation for almost a decade now. I'm a big believer that unless you have an elite quarterback, a Lamar, a Patrick, a Josh Allen, a Joe Burrow, you don't pay guys 40, 50, 60 million a year because it's too disproportionate. You go back even 10, 12 years, the NFL cap did not work this way. It just didn't. It has exploded quarterback-wise exponentially to just ridiculous proportions, like a cartoon or a caricature. It doesn't work unless you also have just a brilliant coordinator to make that work, because you have depth issues not only at starting positions all across the board, but you also have depth position problems at the backup spots. That just creates things. Well, I don't like that in the first place. But since they went down this road, here they are. I think they're going to have a rough end of the playoffs this year. They haven't looked good. They're negative 48 in point differential right now. They're right now the 13th best record in the NFC. Where are you going to squeeze into the playoffs even if you do get on a bit of a run, right? You're third in your division. The North has 4 teams right now with winning records. The NFC West right now has 4 teams that are scratching and clawing and look better than you. Where are you going to squeeze in at even if you do start to play a little bit better? If they were healthy with Micah Parsons, I'd have a little bit better feeling about it. But even when he comes back, he may not be 100%. And when you look at their schedule, it's not an easy schedule. You see game after game of, boy, it's going to be tough to win that one. It's going to be tough to win that one. It's going to be tough to win that one. So I hate to pile on to Dallas here, but every way you look, it's just not great, right? So I don't feel great about that. So that's Dallas.
No, it's a rough spot, and there's some good high-end talent on the roster. It's a bummer that Jerry and company were unwilling to fill the rest out of the supporting cast. Lee, that is I think it's Don Shula's grandson, the defensive coordinator for the Rams. I think his name is Mike. It's like a common name. I'm kind of shitty of me to only remember him by his grandpa, but Don Shula's grandson is the DC. So I think that's pretty cool. And yes, he's doing a really good job, particularly the last couple of weeks, just with given the the talent they've got on that side of the football and all the youth and everything like that. But just to close out the Cowboys point, I think you bring up a really good point, Ben. Like it's similar to the NBA as well. Over the last 10 to 12 years, like there's just not like a middle class of contracts really anymore. In the NBA, you have the mid-level exception, and more often than not, it's like either guys are coming in on the mid-level exception, they're getting veteran minimums, or they're getting 25 to 35% max contracts, whatever their experience in the league or the amount of years they've accrued allows them to make per the CBA. And it's gotten similar in the NFL to where, you've got 12, 13 guys, and it's like a binary conversation at this point. It's like, is this your franchise quarterback or not? And if he is, you're resetting the market with the extension you give him.
You are.
If you're re-signing him, that's the way it goes. The only way you get out from under something like that is if you're acquiring a quarterback in free agency like Baker Mayfield, like Geno Smith, who are kind of on these more $25, $30 million a year kind of deals. Kirk Cousins is a slight exception, but he also didn't get, market resetting money or anything like that. So I don't know, it's an issue for sure, but it's become so just like, well, of course you do that, or they had to reset the market. He was up for an extension and there's inflation coming and all this bullshit. But I agree. Like, you need to be evaluating these players just based on who they are as a player, not necessarily, well, I'm up for an extension, so I should get more than the best quarterback in the league, and on a human level, it's tough to say to the guy who you want to lead your franchise going forward, we don't think you're quite as good as Joe Burrow. We think you're maybe a little bit better than Jared Goff. So we're going to find like a middle ground there. Like, that's a weird conversation to have, of course. But like, I don't know. I think you've got to have it. I think you've got to prioritize the business side of this just as much as you do the interpersonal part of it, just because, then you find yourself in a pretty compromised position at times as a franchise. So, and I'm a big Dak guy to just in general, but, I don't think he's sniffing that top 5 territory on a consistent basis to where, an exorbitant amount of money is justified. But that's all we've got for you this Tuesday on this episode of Necessary Roughness. Before we get out of here, fellas, just let the people know where they can find the other work you guys are doing. Ben, why don't you go first?
Shout out to Lee, who's had a couple of Aaron Rodgers comments that I think you staged. I actually agree. If they would get if Aaron would flex a little bit, that would help out things a little bit instead of kind of being so, hey, I'm the guy, I know what I'm talking about, y'all just listen to me. I agree, Lee. Thank you for letting me be on again. YouTube, Sports and Money KC. We just did a show an hour ago in which we had Struggle Bus, we had Boo Birds, we had Thumbs Down, we did a Lions Packers preview. Lots of fun. So go check us out. Sports and Money KC. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Definitely do that. Keebler.
I haven't been ramping up my Twitter like I said I was going to, just because I've been busy with a new job and everything. So I'm working on it. Trying to figure out a schedule that works. But I don't know. I'm reachable on Twitter at the Nick Stop. So Justin Herbert, if you're still here, I will never say that Joel Embiid is better than Jalen Brunson. I can't bring it to fruition because it's just factually inaccurate. But that's where you guys can find me.
Yeah, get at him on Twitter if you've got Knicks or Giants digs, if you want to coerce him into saying your team's best player is better than his. Try and twist his arm a little bit over on Twitter at the Nick Stop. For me, you can catch me here every Tuesday, 9, 8 Central. Also covering the Vikings for zone coverage. So written work twice a week up there on zonecoverage.com/Vikings. Just published a Christian Darrisaw piece that has since kind of completely nullified with the trade, but the pieces about him and what his teammates said about him is still interesting in my opinion. And we've got a big Brian Flores piece coming out this week about what the hell's been going wrong there. So check that out. Check us out next week. Check out Supersize Sports on Thursday right here on the channel. Check out Another Damn Fantasy podcast on Wednesdays right here on the channel for all of your fantasy advice needs, start 'em, sit 'em, all that jazz. And until then, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you guys next week.